was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And as I saw as the color of amber, keep this in mind now, as the appearance of fire round about it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice. Now we need to deal with this. We're going to do African-centered exegesis in the seminary. We like to do an exegesis on the text.
Very deep. Yeah.
We're going to do an African-centered exegesis on the text today. Now, Mother Ebenfelder, you know that prophecy, when the prophets write, they use symbolic language. And the reason why they had to use symbolic language many times is because when they were writing in a condition whereby they were being oppressed by another in a foreign land, they couldn't tell the story too plain, or it could get them hurt, get them harmed, get them killed, and they could never get their message to people. Just like we were talking about earlier, we were singing those songs that were code songs on the plantation. And they had to sing them in that language. When they wanted to say freedom, they had to say Jesus in order to keep the master from messing with them. But we know what they meant, and they know what they meant, and how do we know? By the results of what those songs caused. Because as a result of singing those songs, a lot of people got off those plantations. Because they were used as a code language for the folk who were coming to liberate them to stop by there and get them. Same thing was happening here. Ezekiel was in Babylon. He was under the oppression of the Babylonians. One group of black people were oppressing another group of black people. By the time that they came to Ezekiel, it was predominantly Eurasians there, because they had taken the land from the original black people there. I talk about that and explain it and show the transition which took place in this book, African Genesis. The original Babylonians were very black people, kinky-haired people, and they were called Akkadian Babylonians. The Babylonians who invaded the Semitic type, the Eurasian-looking one, the mixed-up ones, the wannabes who came, they were called the Kassite Babylonians. They invaded about 1200 before the Common Era. Now I better stop and explain what I mean before the Common Era. Not everybody in the world is a Christian. Not everybody in the world has to be a Christian to know God. Not everybody has to be that. There are fine Muslim people who are closer to the Creator than many Christian people are. There are Buddhists who are much closer than both of them are, who meditate and get in tune every day. So we can't be arrogant and think what our system of belief is the only way that the Creator talks. But then that means you got control over God. Yes. If you got the only way to it, you're going to tell him you only got one way that people can come to you. And here the Creator has put people all over the planet with different cultural experiences. And our religion comes out of cultural experience. Yes. That's what it does. All people behold and conceive of a Creator in terms of their cultural experience. Yes. Only we conceive of it in terms of somebody else's cultural experience since we've been enslaved here. Right. We conceive of a Eurocentric cultural experience, so we kind of looking at some white God or some white Jesus somewhere. That's their cultural experience. It's not our cultural experience. That's right. And think it's sinful for us to view the Creator or see the Creator in our own cultural experience.
That's true.
And in our own image.
Now that's the truth.
Head of the Baptists, one time I think it was Johnson, Reverend Johnson was the name, that the one that the king couldn't get along with, was always fighting the king all the time. Right. He stood up in his pulpit before at the Baptist conference with thousands and thousands of black people in front of me and said it was a sin before God to wear your hair natural in the afro. Now, who gave you the afro in the first place?
God. That's right.
How did you get it? You understand what I'm saying? So you're going to tell a person it's a sin before God for them to be in the natural state that God thought them in. Then you are accusing the Creator of doing wrong, of making a mistake by making people black.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all with me?
All right.
Now, Ezekiel had to use some code language there, and as I talked about, one group of Africans who were being controlled by Eurasians who were oppressing another group, which was the Hebrews, which I will discuss with you in a minute. If not, you can read my books. Dr. Ben has stated it, Dr. Clark, all of it. It should be clear to anybody by now that has heard anything that these people were not Carlton Heston and Elizabeth Taylor looking people. They were people that looked like us.
Yes.
And I'm going to deal with that in a minute. All right. Now, the title of our message today is, You Shall Know the Truth, and the Truth Shall Set You Free. You know, people say it a lot. Assuming, listen to me now. But see, first of all, let me clear something up. The Lord put it on my mind to clear this up. I'm not trying to get a following. I'm not trying to steal anybody's thunder. I'm not coming to beat up on any other black people. I only got energy to build up on my natural enemy. Now, if y'all don't agree with that, you don't have to. It's my natural enemy. I got something to know it's my natural enemy. I got to look out for him. I don't go out of my way to do nothing to him, but I know to protect myself against him. And I know to help us get our minds. So I'm not here to attack anyone's system of belief. I'm simply asking that we get to the point where we do not allow a ceiling to be placed on our mental development consciousness and use our belief in the and blame it on God. The system as an excuse for doing it. Now that has to stop. As Brother Malcolm says, when your religion doesn't motivate you to change your condition from what it is to what it ought to be, you need to rethink your condition. You need to rethink your condition. And you're blaming God, say the Lord wants me in this condition. And you know good and well that the Creator doesn't want you in this condition. The word truth. And I've got to stop and define this word truth because folks think that what they know, their religious belief or their concept of it is the truth. And there is none other. That's all the truth there is. The word truth, as used in the New Testament, from the text, I believe it's in the book of John, and the mother, I forget sometime exactly where it is. I got to poke over somewhere, and I've been quoting that text for over 30 years. But Jesus is reported to have said, You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It comes from I remember translating it when I was in the seminary, from the Koine Greek or the Common Greek language that the New Testament Gospels were translated into, written in. They were written in the Koine Greek at that time, because Greek was the language of scholarship in those days. And I remember translating the word from Aletheia, which means according to the facts. It had nothing to do with a system of belief. It means according to the facts. Can you prove it? That's what truth is. Truth is based on something concrete that you can substantiate with something tangible or some natural law. It has nothing to do with belief. Belief is altogether something different. You shouldn't even argue belief. You shouldn't debate belief. You shouldn't discuss belief. Belief is personal. You cannot prove or disprove a person's belief. I don't mess with that because I don't know what a person needs to believe to keep them going. However, I do have to make us aware of the historical realities. You can keep your belief and still deal with historical reality. And always make that motivation. So don't be frightened when we come to you with these facts and say they're trying to take away Dale Shields knows better. And he doesn't mean that. Because he reads everything. He buys all books. He left there yesterday with 2 shopping bags full of books. He's a very good brother, very wise man, but he's always kidding us about the fact we're trying to take his Jesus. And we always tell them, we say, Dale, we're not trying to take you, Jesus. We're trying to make it real for you.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Let me finish talking about this truth for a minute, and then I'm going to get into the text, and then we'll be ready to close. There should never be, as I just mentioned, a ceiling on the truth. There can't be a ceiling on the truth because truth is ever unfolding.
Yes. Yes.
Truth is ever revealing.
Yeah.
Now, if you got the only truth, you done stop truth. You done turned off the faucet. You ain't gonna get no more water. You done got all the water you need. You done got all the water there is for you. When you turn it off, just right what you understand and what you believe, and there ain't no more. You done cut the faucet off. You have to leave the faucet on for the water to run. And that's how truth is. Truth continues to flow. So as the cosmos ever revealing. Truth becomes brighter, a light that becomes brighter and brighter and brighter to you in your life. And you're born in the world, you figure that's all the truth you know, sucking on the thumb and sucking on the nipple. But as you grow up, you learn some other truths. You learn about cornbread and collard greens and truth like that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was coming up as a boy, we didn't, apartments we had to live in when I was very young, we didn't have a bathtub. And therefore, every Saturday, my mother used to have to take and put us in front of the oven. Some of y'all may not know what I'm talking about. Had to take us and put us in front of the oven. In a tub, 10 tub. I was always scared of it. And I ended up flying in this oven. My mother said, I know what I'm doing, boy. I've looked after you all this time. I'm going to continue to look after you. And I would sit in that tub. When we moved in the first apartment, that we had a bathtub that you could sit and stretch out in. What do you think I did?
Stretched out in.
Now, I'd have been a fool to go back and sit in this tin tub in front of a stove. I mean, it brings fond memories, but that's all I want it to be, is a memory.
Yeah.
And then when I got to where they had a shower, man, you couldn't get me out of there.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you, brothers, that's unfolding truth.
Yes.
Yes.
The truth was the bathing. You got to wash yourself to be healthy.
Yes.
Cleanliness is a part of godliness. However, my concept of that truth was limited to a tin tub. But then my concept of that truth grew, expanded when I got to a bathtub. And then when I got to a shower, I got to the show enough truth there. So my brothers and sisters,
That's all right.
never put a ceiling
Go ahead, go
on
ahead.
truth. If I don't get no other idea across, I'm going to get that one. Never put a ceiling on truth. Many Orthodox religions try to put a ceiling on truth.
Yes.
I mean, they prohibit you to think beyond the perimeters of their particular system of belief. Now, if any religion does that to you, it is not